If you are excited, engaged, and doing all the things a good mentor does, but your student has no desire to learn, then no learning will occur. It's impossible for you to force them. This video is a follow-up to my video I did last week on the number one successful element of a homeschool, where I said that the most important element of a successful homeschool was the mentor. But what is the student's responsibility? And what can you do about it? Hi, I'm Kenna, and I help parents inspire a home environment of learning. I'm glad you're here. My 17-year-old came to me last week and told me that he had watched my video on YouTube, and I said, and? And he said, and it was, pause, good. And I said, but? And he said, well, it just wasn't what I expected. I said, what did you expect? And he said, I expected you to say the most important element of a homeschool was the desire of the student. And that gave me a lot to think about. That is definitely an important element of a successful homeschool, right? You could even do the equation. Desire of the student plus quality of the educator equals how successful the education is, right? And then you think about examples of history where they didn't have a home environment of learning, but they had such a desire in them that they learned as much as they could, either by themselves or often they found a different mentor outside of their home that was the very one they needed. Nat Bowditch comes to mind. He lived in early American times, and his father sold him as an indentured servant instead of helping him continue his education. It was for monetary reasons, and I'm not judging, but Nat found himself as an indentured servant when all he really wanted was to get an education. But he found access to books. First, he learned all he could without books, and then he got access to books and just learned as much as he could there, and he became so educated that Harvard eventually gave him an honorary degree, even though he was never able to go there because he was an indentured servant for long enough. It never was his opportunity to do that. So certainly the desire of the student matters, and certainly the environment created by the mentor and educator also matters. I would like to share my ideas of a few things we can do to invite them to get excited with us. But first, I'd like to share what I think is an insightful observation. When I was thinking about the most important element of a homeschool, I was thinking about my role and what I could do to make it successful. And when my 17-year-old was thinking about what makes a homeschool successful and what that number one element might be, he automatically thought of things that he had control over. And isn't that the way it should be? I can't control their choices, and he can't control mine, right? And so to own that part that we are in control of, and maybe to let go of the things that are not in our control, while still working to improve it and doing the parts that are in our control, like inspiring and influencing and creating an environment, doing all those things, right? But letting go of their part. Like if we have done that, well, then that's that, right? If we have done that, then maybe we need to give away the outcome and not put it on our own shoulders because it's not our fault. Now, this doesn't mean there's not other things we could do better. We're always going to keep trying. We're never going to give up. I'm just saying, do what is yours and inspire them to own what is theirs. And their job, the student's job, is to dig in and get an education, right? To have that desire and to go after it. So, a few ideas of how to engage a disinterested learner, okay? One thought is meet them where they're at. Find something they're interested in and then branch out from there. If they're interested in Legos, for example, find a book about Legos to inspire reading, right? Invite them to make a stop motion to increase their video skills. Do Lego math. Tons of resources online. Just search Lego math and you could use Lego to teach math. If you've got a naturalist who just loves to be outside all the time, use that, right? There's so many things you can do with that. Art, reading, science, so many areas you could go. So just find what they're interested in and help them to branch out into unknown areas of that. Meet them where they are. And once they get that taste of learning, it's easier to inspire them to branch out to something new. Another idea I have is just to create an environment full of invitations. For example, I would put art invitations, is what I would call them, on the table. I would put watercolors and watercolor paper and maybe a few leaves from outside, and I would just leave them there. And I wouldn't call everybody in, they would just be there, invitations. And my kids knew that they were available. Go to the library and pick some books and just have a basket in your living room full of invitations of books you think will draw their eye. So having invitations that are there that are completely up to them can be really helpful to invite them to do something new. Another thought, if you have a child that is bored, disinterested, just really unengaged, check their life, right? Check their emotions. Check the distractions in their life. Check what voices they're listening to. And maybe it's the time to work on relationship and forget about academics altogether for a minute. Build that relationship and then enter in some other things, some exciting things, meeting them where they're at. And of course, your family culture can make a big difference on the environment. So I encourage you to watch my video, if you haven't already, on why I think family culture is more important than curriculum. I'll link that below. Thanks for watching. Here's to you for bringing to the table your part of the equation and always working to become the best influence for a home environment of learning that you can. You've got this.